Hey, Smoke Meat's brought to you by Joe's Underground in Augusta, Georgia, at the corner of 8th and Broad, in the bottom of the Lamar building. I always remember I goes to Joe's and so should you. Right now, Joe's is closed because of the pandemic. Hopefully, they're going to open up soon, and we're going to just have a great big party and have a good time with Jeremy and all the gang. Great food, great drink, great people, great atmosphere. Remember, I goes to Joe's and so should you. Now, sit back and listen to the Smoke Meat Podcast. Hey everybody, you're listening to the Smoke Meat Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Pittman. Today, we've got the joy of having Mr. Reno Collier on our show today. Reno was one of the comics on the Blue Collar Comedy Tour, The Next Generation. He's a great guy, very funny guy. I think you're going to have a good time today. So without further ado, how you doing, Reno?
I'm good, buddy. I'm doing good.
Oh,
just
man.
Quarantined up.
Oh, I'm with you. I am relegated to the basement through all this.
Yeah, I'm starting to lose it a little bit, but just because I haven't been on stage, I don't have anywhere to unload.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of comics are doing, some of the stuff on video. I couldn't imagine doing that, just my act on video with nobody around. 'Cause I like feeding off that energy.
I did a thing. It airs Friday on Fox Nation.
Uh-huh.
And I had to do that. And it is bizarre, man. It's like, there's no crowd, and it's just your phone, but it is kind of fun in a weird way. You get twisted after you've been locked in a house for a month and a half, so anything's fun.
Oh, man. Look at my Facebook page, and you'll see a video I did this morning as a character, Dr. Jebediah Bajiner, talking about COVID-19, so I understand
I'll
that
check
one.
it out.
I definitely understand that.
It's one of those times where if your job, we don't know what's going to happen, because it's all based on if you can get people in crowds.
Yeah.
So it's like just looking for, thank God I do radio every week, and just for some outlet. It's crazy because I'm used to being on the road all the time, and I'm always like, man, I wish I could have a month just to stay home, and 2 weeks in, I'm like, I got to get out of here now. Like, there's got to be. I'm trying to tell jokes to the guy cutting the yard. Hey, come here. Stay 6 feet away. Knock, knock. I need to talk to somebody.
Oh, man, I've recorded more in the last 2 weeks than I have in a long time. Usually it was, maybe 1-2 a week at the most. And all of a sudden, since last week, I think I've recorded about 10 podcasts.
Yeah.
So, yeah. One thing that is good that'll come out of this, I think, is forcing us all to kind of not reevaluate, but just kind of figure out new ways to do what we do.
Yeah.
And a lot of writing's getting done, hopefully anyway.
Yeah.
And,
it's almost like, I was talking to my mom about it. It's almost like a cleanse.
Yeah.
Like, I try to find positives and stuff, and every once in a while, it's kind of like, I believe in God myself, so it's almost like you're not going to stop and pay attention to your family or your kids or church or anything else. Well, how about I make you do it?
Yeah.
And then it kind of, I'm more thankful for things. There's always someone who's got it worse than you. My grandma used to say that to me all the time. And that generation that grew up during the Depression, they'd say stuff and you're kind of like, And then something hits and you're like, and this isn't even nearly as bad as that, but, it does make you kind of reevaluate, your life. What's important to you? What, can you calm down? Because I can't. I never can. And this is forcing me to, But I didn't mean to get all preachy. By the way, pass the plate around. Send me some money.
Pass the plate around and send me some bacon.
Yeah.
But no, man, hey, I believe that's kind of what it is, is, like I say, is God or whoever anybody believes in out there, it's their way of saying you need to slow it down and, get a little bit too big for your britches.
And money's not everything, like it sure is important when you need to eat and keep the lights on, but it's not everything.
Yeah. I say I'm lucky, and at the same time I'm not, because I'm working through this. I'm a paramedic full time.
Yeah.
And just watching this, it doesn't discriminate a bit. It doesn't worry about how old you are, how young you are, how much money you got.
Thank you for doing that too, by the way.
You're very, very welcome. I've been doing it. May 30th will be 30 years.
Oh wow, you've seen all kinds of stuff.
Oh man, you ain't kidding.
My stepdaughter works at the hospital, and it's in the ER, and like I was just talking about church. Now I'm going to take a real strong veer to the right. But like she comes home from work and people are like, "Hey, you know, do you have any COVID patients or what's going on at the hospital?" I'm like, "What'd they find in somebody's butthole?"
You would be amazed.
I know.
I tell you, when I was a young EMT, I probably wasn't a year in. We ran a guy, and I can say this without it being against privacy because I'm not saying where, who, or what. Just he was laying on his couch, naked, and a curtain rod fell off, and just nothing but net.
You believe that?
Oh, of course. I believe anything people tell me.
Because she told me, she goes, everyone always says they fell on it.
Yep.
Like, nobody ever wants to say, like somebody had a potato in their butt. I'm like, you don't just slip it, unless there's butter on it. You're not just going to slip and fall on mashed potatoes. Maybe. And if you like it, it's a sweet potato.
Well, you know, the sweet potatoes got a little bit more sugar in them, too, you know. So
they do, and they soften faster.
But yeah, if I could tell half of the stuff that I've seen out there, holy crap. People have locked me away for being nuts.
And y'all get people that call you just to come visit them and stuff too, don't you?
Yeah. Right now, you know, here in Georgia, we've got the lockdown going on, and that's going so swimmingly because everybody's paying such good attention to it.
Yeah.
And nobody hardly is wearing masks when they go out. So I mean, this thing is far from over because of these kind of people.
Yeah.
And I've got a theory. We've gotten a lot more calls for things that aren't emergent at night, because I work on nights, and I figured out we're getting these calls because the hospital has a good Coke machine.
Yeah.
So that's what that one is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like I remember, and when in Louisville, one of my buddies was an EMT, and he used to tell me this lady used to call. She was just lonely.
Mm-hmm.
Like they'd go over, and she's like, "Do you always want something to eat?" And he's like, "Ma'am, you know, thank you so much, but what can we do?" Well, you know, and it's nothing, and it's just, and then the next thing you know, you're in a car accident. It's like, you know, it's just wide spectrum of stuff you all have to deal with all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's going from, I mean, one night we may be in the truck bay playing cornhole. Yes, we have cornhole boards.
Yeah.
And 1 minute, the next minute, you know, be out where somebody's in 3 pieces from a wreck, you know, and then back to playing cornhole.
Yeah.
It's weird adjusting to that.
I can't imagine.
But I mean, it's some of the things you got to do to cope. You know, I understand about the people who want to call just to talk. I've dispatched and everything else with it. Now we had an old lady one time who she would call at least twice a day and talk for 20 minutes. You couldn't get her off the phone for love or money.
Yeah.
And when you finally could get her off the phone, she'd call back with something. Well, I need the police over here for this. And I'll never forget my favorite one. She called one day. These boys are driving in front of my house yelling prono. They're what? They hollering prono. What's prono? You know, them old naked movies, they over there cussing. Oh, prono. We sent the guy over there and he talked to her for a little while and she was fine, but she was such a sweet old lady, you couldn't get mad at her. Yeah. Especially when she gave me a gem like prono.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, we talked a little bit, you know, about you starting out here in Atlanta, you know. What got you on stage for the first time? I like to ask that question. I know everybody does, but.
Well, you know, it's funny. When I was in college, for my graduation, my parents got me this thing where you could go to take comedy classes in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And there were like 9 of them. And that was my graduation gift. So when I went to Atlanta, I was teaching school part-time. And I was like, well, if I'm going to try to do this, I'm going to get a job at the Punchline. So I got a job at the Punchline.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working the door, working the kitchen, working the bar, anything. I was doing like 3 jobs at a time because I was figured if I work there and someone doesn't show up or stage time, I'll be able to get it like that, you know? So it would be like there were a bunch of hot girls that were waitresses and me and like a dishwasher and a cook, you know? So the men's bathroom would overflow and these girls were like, I'm not cleaning it out. And back then that place was packed every night. Yeah. 350 people to the walls, jammed up, huge party So the women's toilet would overflow or men's toilet overflow, and these girls are like, I'm not cleaning that up. Their waitresses were busy, and I was like, I'll clean it up for 7 minutes on Wednesday. And they're like, no, we're not sitting through that shit again. I'm like, seriously? And they're like, fine, clean it up. So I started trading out stage time for all the bad jobs that nobody wanted to do.
How many times did you clog that toilet?
Oh, God, what a great idea. I wish I'd have thought of that. I probably did, but not for the reason you're thinking. The women's one was always cleaner. They're not like us, man. They keep their stuff like cats.
Oh,
but
man.
I had this comedy school I was doing, and the graduation was at the Punchline, and I went to like 2 of them, and I was like, well, this isn't really like comedy. Like I was hanging out with like Brian Regan at night, and then going into this, and I was like, I'm bailing. So I just stopped going. Well, my mom calls me the night before the graduation at the Punchline. It's like, honey, I was going to surprise you, but I need a ride from the airport. I'm going to fly in to watch your graduation. I hadn't been to this thing in 6 weeks. And I was like, oh, okay. Oh, no, So I'm like, okay, I'll pick you up at the airport. So I call the guy who runs it. And I'm like, hey, man, you gotta put me up on that graduation. He's like, no, you haven't been to any of the classes. Da, da, da. I'm like, all right, cool. Then I'm going to need my money back. And he's like, you're going up 7th. I was like, that's exactly right. Because I'd been doing open mic and stuff, so I was ready. It wasn't like, But that's how I got started. And then I got like 3 weeks booked on the road, making like $150 a week. And I was like, I'm a comedian now.
Sweet.
So I just ditched my lease was up. I ditched my apartment. I quit my job at the school. And I lived on the road for like 3 years. Just taking I'd be in Lubbock, Texas on a Sunday and have to be in Myrtle Beach on a Tuesday. And I had no apartment. And I had hot pots and shirts and pants, and my back seat looked like I lived out of that thing.
Yeah. Kind of like
It was
my
the
car
greatest
now.
time ever, man. It was so much fun.
Yeah, you see, I never got to be a road comic, and I kind of regret that. My only paying gig, you'll love this because you can probably relate to it. It was in a strip mall. On the back side of it, there was a strip club there in Savannah, Georgia. And that's where my first paying gig was. I made $50.
Yeah.
And if there's ever a movie made out of that night, Ben Stiller will be in it. That's the kind of night it was.
Yeah.
But
yeah, those early on, man, there was some rough, type gig. And comics, we always loved talking about them.
Mm-hmm.
But biker bar, I mean, I did anything. I had to. I had nowhere to sleep. So if they didn't pay for a hotel, I was either in my car or trying to, sleep on a friend's couch or whatever. But you get out into Texas, and if you don't know somebody and you're stuck out there for a few days, especially back in the 90s, you're at the Jolly Inn for $19.99 a night with a 6-pack of beer and a Big Mac going, did I do the right thing? Actually, I never thought that. I always knew what I was doing as far as like, that's what I wanted to do. But it is it's crazy sleeping in rest areas, and it was so much fun. People think it's hard. Like, wasn't that the hardest time of your life? I'm like, it was the best time. I had no responsibilities. It was freaking awesome.
Yeah, and there's some places that you've played or, shows you've done that you probably, everybody says you regret this. I don't have any of that I've ever done that I regret. Now, there's probably some that I should regret.
Yeah.
But I don't regret any show I've ever done.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't either.
So and I know you started opening for Larry the Cable Guy. How did that come around?
I was living out, and when I moved out to Los Angeles, I'd had like 3 TV deals in a row, but I couldn't get a show on the air. Mm-hmm. And eventually you become that guy that they get sick of giving money to for stuff that ain't going to work.
Yeah.
So I had my first kid, and my ex-wife's family was all from Nashville. So I was like, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go to Nashville. Well, I knew Cable Guy from when he was a feature act at the Punchline, when I was bartending and stuff. But I signed on with the same management company that had Foxworthy and Ingvall and Ron and all those guys. Mm-hmm. And I was like, look, I want to sign with you guys, but I'm moving to Nashville. And they're like, go ahead. And I'm like, I don't have to stay in L.A.? They're like, absolutely not. Go ahead, we got it. I'm like, bye. And I was like, I fired my old manager, hopped on with those guys, came to Nashville, and then for 10 years I was on tour with him. And then 3 with, it was me and Ingval and Foxworthy and Cable Guy. It was fun, man. It was so much fun.
Yeah, I remember we worked the Bell Auditorium in Augusta on the ambulance, and he came through. I can't remember if you were opening for him or not. I feel bad about that.
Don't worry about it.
But we pulled up, and he had two motorhomes with crime scene tape around them, watching the Georgia-Florida game, and it was just so cool because he talked to everybody that came up. You know, just he understood his fans are what makes the show, and he was so great with all of them.
We used to finish a show, and the bus driver would be like, "All right, the show ends at 10. We're leaving at 10:30."
Yeah.
At 2:00 in the morning, the bus driver's sitting there, and he would sit out there and sign until it got too big where he couldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, after you get into 15,000 people, you can't do it. But when it was like 1,500 to 2,500, he would go out front after the show and talk to every single person.
Yeah, and that just goes so far with me because, you know, I'm just, without people to laugh at me, I am nothing but a crazy person talking to myself.
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly right. And, you know, it's funny because I see a lot of young guys, you know, if they go in to do a show and it's their show and there's 25 people there, they start yelling at the people about how nobody's there. And I'm like, hey, numbnuts, you don't yell at the people who paid. If you want to yell at someone, go find somebody on the street who didn't come to see you.
Yeah.
Don't ever go after the people that actually made the effort. Celebrate them. You don't know what they're going through. They might just need to laugh. Maybe they're getting out of the house because, you know, they got something going on. They want to forget for a while. Don't remind them. Not to mention the fact, don't remind them that nobody bought tickets to your show, dumbass. You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different beast out there now than it was. Because it used to be, I mean, you'd get laid out if you did something like that. You know, if you were opening for someone and you went out and started talking about how stupid the crowd was, or, you know, the club owner would be like, first of all, your job's the announcements. Second of all, get out.
Yeah.
You know? And now it's tough, man, because all these YouTube people that aren't comedians who they throw up on stage and they have no act. And it's just changed because they sell tickets once.
Yeah.
Because people see it and go, oh, I want to go see that. Then they go see it and go, the guy didn't have an act. Some of them do, but you know what I'm talking about.
Hey, you know, there's one, you know, I won't say who it is, but he's got a character that's amazing on YouTube and Facebook. Won't miss a video, but it's not a character that's going to translate to stage. And he doesn't do it on stage. And everybody that goes to see him is like, you didn't do this. He's like, I know.
Yeah. Yep.
And, you know, I'm just interested to see what happens on the other side of all this when people can start having shows again. You know, I'm fine. It's my time in life because I'm happy to be the comic that I am, because with the 10-person maximum limit, I could still do shows if I wanted to.
Yeah.
And I would almost sell out every night.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be weird how they do it. Like, I'm doing a couple fairs, or I was scheduled to, I don't know. But I think a lot of stuff's going to be outside this summer.
Yeah.
If I had to guess.
Yeah.
We'll see. But all the casinos, you know, you figure everybody's putting their fingers all over everything. I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And comedy clubs and theaters, how you going to, I don't know, man. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah. You know, it is, you know, I hope everybody comes out on the right side of it and kind of, I think it's making everybody better.
Yeah.
You know, not just comics, I mean just everybody in general, because I've noticed one thing, you know, people are being nicer to each other, more considerate.
They are, aren't they?
And one thing I am noticing with this too is with people staying at home, you know, we've got a lot of people, we're having a lot of assaults. So, welcome to Georgia. I got to stay home with you. I'm going to beat you.
Yeah.
We're having a lot of drug and alcohol problems go on. And I hate that because it makes me wonder how many people, you know, were great until this happened. And all of a sudden, boom, I'm locked in the house. Well, time to go back at it.
Yeah, not only just locked in the house, but locked in the house and have no money, have no job.
Yeah.
You know, it feels like the world's tumbling down on you. And I quit drinking. It's been about 3 years and some change, a couple months. And it was hard, man. And I got to be honest with you, it ain't easy during this.
Yeah.
And I've got a few years under my belt, and it still is, it's tough, but you can't. And that's why there's little things that people say, like one day at a time and 1 minute at a time. If you need that, you got to hang on, And it's, I tell people on my social media, I'm not a huge social media guy, but I tell people on there, like, if you need someone to talk to, call me.
Yeah.
And I'll talk to them. I don't care. Hell, I ain't got nothing to do. Where am I going? It's either that or blow the leaves off the porch for the 50th time. I don't give a shit.
The thing is, while you're blowing the leaves off the porch, wife comes outside this board and says, I need to blow some leaves onto the porch. So all it could take to stop that cycle is put them in a bag.
That's right.
But if you're like me, they'll never be in a bag.
No.
Yeah, like I say, the light at the end of someone's tunnel might be you.
That's right. You never know, man. I know I had people that I never would have thought of that have helped me out in my life. That it's the last person I'd have thought of.
Yeah.
And you don't know. You just kind of. That's what makes life exciting.
Yeah, it can definitely get that way. A lot of people that know me know I had 2 strokes 5 years ago.
Oh wow.
And it's funny. Adversity will bring your friends to the surface, and people you thought were your ride or dies disappear kind of quick, and people you never thought, the people you thought either tolerated you or you tolerated them, would walk through the middle of hell with you. And that's it's one good thing that comes out of the adversity. But
yeah, you never know how much you mean to people, and most of the time you think you're more important to someone than you actually are.
Exactly. Exactly. That's why I tell everybody, the podcast is starting to take off a little bit. I've got some character videos on YouTube that they're starting to gain a little traction, and I'm getting some little can't think what to call it. Little things going on with some auditions and things like that I've never had to do before, and things are kind of growing through all this, and I'm letting everybody know, hey, if you ain't been with me through the 30 years I've been doing comedy and hadn't been big, then you're not going to be with me when I do hit it. I tell everybody, if I win the lottery, there's going to be a little place built, and if you belong in it, you'll have a place there. If you don't, you'll never get in. Yep.
Yeah, they used to always say when I lived out in California, they were like, always be nice to the busboy, to the cook, because like in Los Angeles, that guy could end up being the producer of a movie in 6 months that you didn't even know they had written.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's true. The ride up is great, but the ride down, you're hitting bumps of everyone you stepped on the way up.
Oh, yeah. My boss used to have a plaque on his wall said, be careful of the feet you step on today. They may be connected to the ass you have to kiss tomorrow.
That's brilliant. That's exactly right.
Yep. And he put it in his office for everybody to see him. That makes a good point.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, you got any advice? Man, I'm sounding like the typical interviewer. I should use my radio voice.
No, man.
Anybody that's kind of wanting to break into comedy now, I'm helping mentor a couple of folks that they're so great, and they need to understand their potential, and that they do have a lot of it. And any advice for the young folks that are wanting to get into this?
The most important advice is take any and all stage time you can get, as much as you can get it.
Mm-hmm.
And, people go, I'm not performing it. Yes, you should. Well, I'm not going to. Yes, you should. And the other thing is write real stuff. Like, if it happens to you, write that. You can twist it and torque it and do whatever you want to it, but stick to real life, because the biggest thing people ask, and they've been doing it for years, is they say, what's that person's point of view? And I never knew what that meant. I'm like, what do you mean point of view? But what it is if I could take that person, if I can watch their act, take them and put them in a situation, I know how they would act.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If you're kind, stay kind. When I first started, I wanted to be Dennis Leary.
Oh, yeah.
But I looked like the Gerber baby. And I was like, dropping F-bombs, and I'll kick your ass. And people would watch it and be like, that's not him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's not really like that. It came off as pretend, you know?
Yeah.
So the closer you can get to yourself, characters are a blast. I mean, everybody is a character on stage. Some people take it like Cable Guy is a character, and you know what I mean? Like it, but you know, people are like, does he talk like that? I'm like, no, not really. But he's a bigger redneck. I mean, he grew up with pigs and he used to hide the pigs from his dad taking him to the sale barn in his closet, and his mom would find piglet. Like he grew up at a sale barn, and I've been to Pawnee City, Nebraska, where he's from. He is a redneck. And people pull up videos. They're like, well, here he is and he's talking, you know, well, because at that time in the 80s, you know, all comics dress the same.
Yeah.
Talk the same. You know, it's because when you come up, you idolize people. You may like Jay Leno or you may like somebody. So when you first start out, you're trying to be whoever was funny to you.
Yeah.
And then you find yourself. But you know, if you took Larry the Cable Guy and put him in a sitcom, you know where he'd stand on things.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So if you can keep that point of view where, you know, you're true to yourself. And the other thing is, if you tell real stories about your own life, you don't have to worry about people stealing them or, you know, it becoming a problem. Because when you're young and coming up, if you start doing other people's bits, you're ostracized.
Oh, yeah. That's one thing I've always been extremely careful about. When I'm writing, it seems like that's when all the good stand-up specials come out, because I won't watch even before I start writing, because I'm just scared that, you know, even though it won't be intentional, subconscious, I'll be, okay, yeah, let's do this.
Oh, me too, man. You want to hear a funny story?
Yeah.
So years ago, there was a comedian. Well, here's what happened. So I was doing a showcase in LA at the Laugh Factory. And I go up and I do this joke. And I go, I was like 260 pounds. I was like, you know, I don't fit in here. I go, I can't find any clothes. I bought this silver shiny shirt thing. I look like a freaking baked potato in it.
You look like space pants.
Yeah. So, and this is 20 some years ago. So I come off stage and Ralphie May comes up to me and goes, hey man, he goes, I got that same joke. And I'm like, Ralphie, no, you do not have that same joke. You're not stealing this joke. He's like, nah, man, I'm serious. I got the same joke. I do the same joke. I'm like, Ralphie, because you another comic will watch someone do a set, and if they come up and go, I have that same joke, they're probably stealing it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Ralphie, and he goes, I swear to God, man. He's like, I've been doing it for like 2 weeks. And I was like, yeah. But he goes on the Craig Kilborn show and does it. And I'm like, damn it, Ralphie. So I'm like, Ralphie, what is your, and so through the years, I mean, dude, this goes on until like 3 years ago. We'd see each other or be talking. I was on a radio show one time that he was co-hosting. He's like, you still mad at me about that baked potato? I'm like, Ralphie, you know you stole that joke, right? So I'm talking to my wife, and she's like, who are like the comedians that you loved? And I went through everybody, Eddie Murphy, and I was like, this guy, Robin Harris.
Oh, man, he was great.
Was brilliant. I go, when I was in college, I had a VHS tape of him. And I probably watched it 100 times. I'm like, you got to see this guy. So I turned, and I mean, literally, dude, I'd go out and get hammered and come home and watch that and laugh all the time. So I pull it up, and my wife and I are watching it, and this big fat lady in a silver dress stands up. And he goes, look at you, girl, walking down the aisle like a baked potato. And I went, oh, no. And I was like, oh, God, I got to call Ralphie. And I didn't call him, he died, and I never got to tell him how funny, because he loved Robin Harris too, and both of us, it just stuck somewhere in our head.
Yeah.
Like that. And I was looking at the thing, and she's like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, oh my God. I go, do you remember I told you about Ralphie and the thing? And she's like, yeah. And I go, that's the joke. That's the whole freaking thing. So it's weird how that stuff sticks in your head.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You know, the only joke I've ever intentionally stolen on stage, and I actually gave credit while I was on stage to it. I actually stole it from Jay Hickman. And
yeah,
I had gotten out of comedy for a little while, and I started coming from Thompson to Atlanta, where I was living at, and doing every dive bar I could find. And I don't remember the name of the one I went to, but I did some research on it and found out that I was going to be extremely different than everybody else in there. And
Yeah.
I called the booker and I'm like, man, am I
Were
going
you
to
at
play that
Uptown?
okay? No, it wasn't a named place. I mean, it was just a dive. I mean, it was a big time dive, but it was an awesome place.
Yeah.
And the booker told me, he said, dude, comedy don't know a color. You're going to be fine. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'll come on and do it.
Yeah.
And I got on stage, and I mean, I was sweating like Mike Tyson taking the SATs, man.
Yeah.
And I got up there and I said, y'all, I'm just going to tell you now, because I was the only white person in the place. And I said, I was a little bit nervous. Before the show, I got a little scared. I went to the bathroom, and while I was in there, this guy walked up next to me, and I heard him unzip his pants, and I looked down, and it sounded like he's pulling a baseball bat out of a bag, and I looked down, and he said, whew, I just made it. He said, man, can you make me one in white? And and that just broke the ice, and it was such a great show that night. But I gave Jay credit for that because, that was his.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I like
Yeah,
it.
it's true. Comedy doesn't. Here's the only thing I learned, because by not having an apartment for all those years, I had to take every week I could get. So I'd open for Earthquake and, these big urban acts, Joe Torre and Tommy
Yeah.
Davidson and Jamie Foxx, because whenever they'd come through, they needed, and I would do like 15 minutes,
Yeah.
But I'd have to take them, and I had cowboy boots on and jeans, and it was the 90s. I was living in Atlanta. I looked like I was coming out of the bullpen, mullet. And
Yeah.
it was like, and I'd go out, but it was the greatest thing that ever happened, because people used to say, well, comedy doesn't have color.
Yeah.
It doesn't. But what it does have is the smell of fear. And,
Yes.
and in the beginning, if you're afraid, black crowds will eat you alive.
Oh, yeah.
And so will white crowds. If it's not a black or white thing, but it depends on who you're going to see, what kind of comedy you like.
Yeah.
And, it's bad booking to have a redneck open for Earthquake. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they couldn't find anybody, and I needed somewhere to live. I needed to stay at the hotel. But it was the greatest experience, because it made me realize there really isn't. You just can't be afraid.
Yeah.
You have to be yourself. Don't be afraid. And who cares? What's the worst that's going to happen?
Yeah, exactly.
They don't laugh? Well, if you go out there nervous, they're not going to laugh either. I remember one time there was a lady in the front. At the Stardome, it takes forever to get. And I was the house MC there for a while. It takes forever to get to the microphone because the stage is so big in Birmingham. And I'm walking out, and this lady stands up. She goes, "Oh, hell no!" And I was like, "Are you?" And when I walked up, you looked down, and I could see her boobs. And I was like, "Will you say you pop those things out for me?" And everybody's like, "Oh, damn!" I go, "Seriously, let's make some khaki babies." And I looked like a red, and the whole place went nuts, right? And then another time I walked out, and it's a huge stage, and I was like, "Good God!" I go, "Look, I wasn't expecting to see y'all here either." And they laugh a little bit. I go, "I feel like Buddy Holly at the Apollo. This is some bullshit." And then, you know what I mean? And then because it was real. It was honest and real.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, so it's not a color thing. It's more of like how comfortable are you? Because the more comfortable you are, and the more you're yourself and honest, people can sniff that out.
Yeah. And I'm
You know what I mean?
learning that every day, especially doing these. If you listen to the first one I did, I actually interviewed one of the comics that I helped mentor. And we're just talking, but the next interview I do, I almost sound like the radio voice interview, like I'm trying hard not to do here. And, and I get I have such more, if I could speak good, I'd be all right. I have so much more fun just doing it like this, where we're just talking. I mean, there's not a set thing we're doing.
No, this is a recorded phone call, like two buddies hanging out.
Yeah, that's it, and I love this. I like the fact that you're doing this, because a lot of comics I've noticed almost act like it's a competition.
Yeah.
And I hate that. I write a lot of stuff that doesn't really work for me, but if I have a friend who I know it'll work for, man, I'll hook them up with it. We were writing one night at my cook shack in Thompson years ago, and I had a friend. I was sitting there. I said, I bet Amish girls could give mean hand jobs after churning all that butter.
Yeah.
And it worked perfect for him. The way my act was then, it wouldn't have worked for me.
Yeah.
And the other guy, Jesse Suggs, he's an up and comer. He's a good little comedian. He's about 4'11", and he's a full-time firefighter and paramedic also. And he wanted me to kind of help him out a little bit and give him some ideas. And I said, dude, let's tell everybody every time you get off the truck on an emergency call with your turnout gear on, everybody thinks you're a Make-A-Wish kid, and that has killed for him. and you know, I just love sharing stuff like that for people because, I mean, that's not a joke that'll work for me, but it's hilarious and it's perfect for him. You know, and there's comics out there that, well, you know, I'll say this joke for $20. I'm like, really, man? And I understand some people, I mean, you got to buy jokes. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, I'm just too poor and cheap to buy them.
Yeah.
And
well, I'm not competitive because I peaked. Mm-hmm. I'm done. I had TV shows and got to be in movies and did specials and I did everything I ever wanted to do. That's a good thing about not setting your goals too high because after you finish, you're like, hell, I'm good.
Yeah.
People are like, do you miss LA? No, not for a freaking second. Don't you miss all the excitement and I was great when I was in my 20s. I'm almost 50. I'm just going to cruise along and do my little radio and do some shows and play a little golf and enjoy my kids before they get out of school.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. You know, when I was in my early 20s when I started this, man, I'd have killed going out to LA and have the movies and everything. And now, well, I've got a couple things in the works that I'm working with, and you know, I'd like to get some screen time. That'd be cool. Anybody that says they wouldn't want it, you know, okay, whatever. Sure. But it's not my main goal. I'm doing this to have fun now. I don't get paid off this podcast yet. Hopefully one day I'll have 10,000 listeners a minute. And
hell yeah.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. But if 50 people listen to this, I'm fine. Yeah. 10,000 listen to it, I'd be happier because then I'd start getting paid. But hey.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
As long as you enjoy it. Let me tell you something. I'll be blunt and totally honest with you.
Yeah.
All that stuff that everybody runs after that I got to do, it ain't what you think it is.
Yeah.
It's like, all my problem, if I could have my own TV show, then you get it. It's like, well, now what do I do? This doesn't fill that void I thought I had. This doesn't, you know?
Yeah.
And then you start believing that you're great and all that stuff, and then something real happens, and you go, huh. Well,
yeah.
It's kind of not real. It's not, I mean, money can go as fast as you can make it, and it's not real. There's more to life than just trying to make yourself look cool.
Yeah.
You know? I'm getting old, man. I would have punched myself in the face 20 years ago.
Oh, welcome to my world, man. Welcome to my world. I remember when cool was a pair of linen pants with the pleats on the front.
I was pimping parachute pants.
Oh, dude, I wore them in high school.
At the skating rink.
Oh, my aunt and uncle used to own a skating rink, and we would go for free.
Oh, that's a good deal.
My sister, there was no way that she could not skate. I mean, she'd win the races. She could skate backwards, do a little dancing and stuff. And me, I would almost kill myself every week.
Yeah.
But I went.
My move was I'd go skating as fast as I could into the wall. Mm-hmm. Like I hit it, but it was only up to your waist, and flip over it and land on the seat. And I'll bet I missed the seat 50% of the time.
But that 50%, you were amazing.
But when I stuck it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
hey, baby.
And I don't know what music they played at your skating rink, but I guarantee you skated a little bit faster when You Dropped the Bomb on Me came on.
Oh, hell yeah.
I put turbo on the wheels.
We always tried to skate as fast as we could, but there was always somebody down with the 1 foot out.
Oh, yeah.
You know, all the way down. You couldn't see him, and we were those peckerhead kids that just, like, went out, like, and just wiped out half the birthday party, and, you know, it was fun, man.
Been there. I've always been a big old boy, and I was kind of, whenever I'd fall, it's like somebody just put holes in a beach ball and filled it with concrete and rolled that bitch like a bowling ball across the thing. Because somebody was going down with me. I wasn't going to be alone.
Yep.
But I remember rocking my early 90s. I rocked the pleated linen pants and the printed silk shirts.
Nice.
Oh, yes, I was the man.
Yeah.
Oh, I look back now. I always say I've never done anything I regret because everything I've done has put me where I'm at.
Yeah.
No matter how small, but there's a lot of shit that I should regret, and those clothes are one of them.
Yeah.
But the parachute pants, I will not regret because I wore muscle shirts with mine too. 8th grade, I wore a shirt with sleeves on it 2 days that year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. When I was in 6th grade, I went and after school, before football practice, I got a mohawk that was like, and I didn't tell my parents. And ended up getting sent to military school, but so it was the top and the back, and then it hung down in the back.
Mm.
You remember those old school, and then shaved on the sides.
Yep.
And I remember I came in, I had my football helmet on, and my mom was like, "Why is your helmet on in the house?" And I'm like, "What?" I'm like 10 or 11. She's like, "Take your helmet off." And I was like, "I'm good," because I knew she was going to flip out. My dad's like, "Take your helmet off." And I'm like, ugh. And I take my helmet off. She goes, "You look like an effing Hare Krishna. Get upstairs." Out come it was like, yeah. So then I just had like this patch on the top of my head. And it was all crooked and shit. And everyone's like, "I thought you were getting a mohawk." And everybody that played football was like, "Oh, he had one." Because I told everybody I was going to do it. And everyone's like, "You'll never do it. You'll never." I'm like, "Yeah, I will. I don't care. No." Stupid.
Yeah, I got mine the day before the last day of 8th grade.
Yeah.
Walked in 8th grade. I remember Mr. Freeman, he taught a class. It was like a little career class. Basically, it was the easy class that everybody took.
Yeah.
And I wore a hat in the room. And that was his hard and steadfast rule. He's like, "Boy, you better take that hat off right now." "Yes, sir." I pulled my hat off. He sat there for a second and said, "You can put it back on." But yes, awesome. I loved my mohawk, man.
Yeah.
But, oh, yeah.
Well, hey, buddy, today is my son's birthday, and he's finishing up his schoolwork online, but he's supposed to be done in a few, and I hate to bail, man, because I love talking to you.
Oh, dude, you're good. You're welcome on here anytime. You got my number. All you got to do is holler.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
This is fun, man. We're literally just like talking on the phone. Then a few hundred people get to sneak in and listen to what the hell we were saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I say, anytime you want on here, man, holler at me. The worst I can do is say I'm tied up right now. How about calling me in the morning?
Well, I appreciate it.
And wish your son a happy birthday for me, man. I have had a ball doing this. I appreciate you coming on here so much. And anything you want to push, man, give us your website, Facebook, anything you want to push, man, I'll throw it out there.
It's renocollier.net. There's not a lot on there right now because everything got canceled. But this Fox Nation thing airs this Friday if people are signed up to Fox Nation. And you can check out my album, Monkey, if you want. But that's free on Pandora and Sirius. And if you put it on Pandora, you can listen to it. You ain't got to buy it on iTunes or anything.
Sweet.
Other than that, man,
cool. Oh,
just plugging along, buddy. By
the way, check your Wikipedia page. Because I looked on there, because I like to look at everybody on there, The official website is a boxing blog.
Is that what?
It's a blog about boxing.
With my name?
Yes.
Yeah, because some Chinese jackass, somebody in China bought my .com name.
Oh, man.
So now I have to be .net.
Oh, man, that's just
and they
wrong.
wanted money for it.
Oh.
They're like, and it only slipped for like a second. And I lost my website name because I suck at this stuff. I don't know what the hell's going on. And the record company calls me up and goes, "Hey, man, somebody in China bought renocollier.com. It just came up for a second before the credit card repaid again." And I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "Yeah, they want money." I'm like, "Mother, what?" And I'm like, "We can't call them. They're somewhere in China."
Yeah, when I saw it, I was thinking, man, I don't really know a lot about boxing, but apparently he's really into it. This is
not at all. I don't even know what. It's boxing. Ugh. Where is the boxing company?
Oh man, it's not even a company, man. It's just straight up just a blog. It's talking about boxing and COVID, and I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be weird. But dude,
Maybe somebody in the States bought it, and I can go find them and see if I can still box.
there you go.
Yeah.
Oh man, well, enjoy your son's birthday, and I've had a ball, man.
Me too, buddy. Me too. And thanks for having me on, and we'll do it again.
Outstanding. Well, you take them easy. You need anything, you give me a holler, brother.
Thanks. You too, buddy.
All right. Bye.
See you, man.